Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are confronting a problem that I think um, basically every single professional listening to this has faced at some point.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because you have the data,
Yeah.
right? You have this massive spreadsheet. It has 10,000 rows. It looks incredibly impressive, but you have absolutely no idea what the actual strategy is.
The famous data graveyard.
Yes, exactly.
We collect it, we store it, we pay a total fortune for cloud storage for it, and then it just sits there gathering digital dust.
It just sits there. So the question we are really tackling today is how do you take that raw, messy, often boring data and translate it into a business move that saves millions?
And we aren't talking theory today.
No, we are looking at someone who is actually doing this in the trenches.
Right.
We are diving into the career of Celiwe based on her professional CV, her detailed work profile, and the website for her company, Lean Placements.
Celiwe is a really fascinating case study because she sits right at that intersection that everyone talks about, but very few people actually manage to occupy.
Yeah.
She is a senior data analytics lead and strategist. But when you look at these sources we're analyzing today, you see that she's essentially bilingual. She speaks fluent Python code and fluent executive boardroom.
That translation layer is exactly what we're interested in. We're going to look at her work across banking, logistics, and healthcare to figure out how she does it. And the specific wins in this source material are just wild.
Totally.
We are talking about cutting processes from 3 days down to minutes. We are talking about saving R500,000 a month just by looking at fuel differently.
It is a complete masterclass in efficiency. But I think the real hook here for you listening is where she is going right now. Her profile explicitly mentions the operationalization of agentic systems.
Which sounds like total sci-fi, and we will definitely get to that. But I want to start with the concrete wins, because often data strategy feels really vague, like we improved synergy, great.
Right, what does that even mean?
Exactly. But Celiwe's profile is full of hard, tangible numbers.
So let's look at the banking sector first. Since March 2023, she has been the Senior Manager for Reporting Analytics and Insights at Access Bank South Africa.
And the headline stat here is ridiculous. She reduced the end-to-end onboarding time for customers from 3 days to just minutes.
Just pause on that for a second. 3 days to minutes. In the banking world, that isn't just a slight improvement. That is a complete transformation of the entire business model.
But how does that actually happen? I mean, technically, you don't just ask the computer to go faster.
No. Based on the source material, this was a massive integration challenge. She had to bridge the gap between FlexCube and modern reporting tools.
Now, for those who haven't worked in a bank, FlexCube is kind of like the heavy-duty vault where the ledger lives, right? It's not exactly known for being agile.
Exactly. It's a legacy beast. Usually getting data out of a system like that involves a manual extract, maybe a spreadsheet handoff, a human review for risk compliance.
And that's where your 3 days go.
Right, it's pure friction. What Celiwe did was build an automated bridge. She likely used APIs or direct data pipelining to pull that data, instantly run it through a predictive risk framework, and give a green light or red light immediately.
That predictive risk framework part seems crucial, because if you just speed up onboarding, aren't you just speeding up the rate at which you accept fraudsters?
That is the classic trade-off, speed versus security. But her profile highlights that she established this framework alongside the efficiency gains.
So she didn't sacrifice one for the other.
No, she used historical data to model what a risky customer looks like. So instead of a human staring at a form for an hour to decide if it looks shady, the algorithm compares the applicant against 10 years of fraud data in a millisecond.
So the machine handles the clear-cut cases, and the humans only deal with the edge cases.
Precisely. And the business impact of that is massive.
Yeah.
We call it the time to value. If a customer wants an account and you make them wait 3 days, they might just go next door.
Yeah, they'll go to the competitor.
Right. If you give it to them in minutes, you've captured them. She didn't just save time, she likely boosted their acquisition rate significantly.
It's really interesting that she's doing this in banking now, because if we rewind her career to around 2010, she was doing almost the exact same thing in a completely different industry.
Logistics.
Yeah, at Barlow World Logistics. And this is arguably even more tangible because we are dealing with physical atoms here, trucks and fuel.
The stat from the notes is a 12% reduction in fuel consumption, which in logistics must be the #1 variable cost.
Oh, easily. And the sources quantify it. That 12% saved the company about R450,000 per month.
Which is nearly 5.5 million Rand a year, straight to the bottom line.
And again, the question is how? The profile says she engineered a risk-aware predictive model using SQL and telematics. Telematics is the data coming right off the engine, right?
Yes. GPS, location speed, RPM, harsh braking, idling time. Back in 2010, a lot of companies collected this data, but they just stored it.
Back to the data graveyard.
Exactly. It was just in there. Celiwe used SQL, which is structured query language, to actually mine that database.
So instead of just a monthly report saying we spent X on gas, she built a model.
She built a model that correlated specific driving behaviors with excess fuel use. It moves from descriptive analytics, which is driver A used 100 liters, to prescriptive analytics.
Which tells you what to do about it.
Right. It says if driver A stops idling at rest stops, we save 10 liters.
That distinction is key for you listening. Descriptive versus prescriptive. Descriptive is, here is what happened. Prescriptive is, do this to fix it.
And that is the thread that connects her entire career. She never stops at descriptive.
Let's look at her time at MultiChoice, the media giant. This was from 2019 to 2023. This feels like a shift from operational efficiency to high-level strategy.
It definitely is. Because in media, the enemy isn't fuel consumption, it's churn.
Churn being people canceling their subscriptions.
Right. And in a subscription business, retaining a customer is always cheaper than finding a new one. Celiwe developed an omni-channel service-to-value framework that reduced churn by 4%.
Okay, service to value sounds like major corporate speak. Unpack that for me. What does it actually mean for the customer?
Think about why you call a call center. You're usually unhappy. You have a problem. That interaction is usually viewed by the business as a cost. It costs money to answer the phone. Service to value flips that mindset.
How so?
He uses data to turn that interaction into a retention opportunity.
So the system recognizes that I'm calling it, sees I've been a subscriber for 10 years, it sees my viewing patterns, and it empowers the agent to offer me something specific to make me stay.
Exactly. It connects the dots. The omnichannel part means she was pulling data from everywhere. The call center logs the app usage, the billing history.
Wow.
If you can predict that a customer who watches strict sports content and calls about a billing error is 90% likely to cancel, you can intervene before they hang up.
That's incredible. It turns the service department from a pure cost center into a profit saver.
And she didn't just do this in one country. The source mentions a Pan-African BI strategy. She led alignment across multiple territories.
Now, I know from our previous research that data fragmentation in Africa is a massive challenge. Every country has different compliance laws, different currencies, different legacy systems.
It's a total nightmare. The source says she accelerated strategic decision cycles by 50% using standardized ETL processes.
ETL?
Extract, transform, load. It's the plumbing of data engineering. It's how you move data from source A to database B. By standardizing this across the continent, she ensured that the executives at head office weren't looking at apples from Kenya and oranges from Nigeria.
They were looking at a unified standardized data set.
Right, which means they can make decisions twice as fast. Speed of decision-making is a competitive advantage. If you can spot a trend in the Nigerian market 2 weeks before your competitor because your ETL pipeline is clean, you win.
We see this pattern again at Discovery Health. She was there between 2015 and 2018. This brings in the concept of shared value.
Discovery is famous for this model.
Yeah.
The idea is that the insurer, the doctor, and the patient all benefit if the patient stays healthy.
She led the Vitality for Doctors BI solution, and the outcome listed is lowered preventable claims.
That is a profound metric, preventable claims. That means using data to identify patients who are on a path to a health crisis. Maybe they aren't managing their diabetes or they're missing screenings, and then flagging that for the doctor.
So the data triggers an intervention. The doctor calls the patient gets treated, they don't end up in the ER.
And the insurer saves a massive payout. That is shared value. But to do that, you need incredibly sophisticated modeling. You have to be able to predict risk based on medical history and behavior.
It's the same predictive muscle she used at Barlow World with the trucks, but applied to human biology. It's fascinating to see the same logic applied to fuel subscriptions and blood pressure. But Celiwe isn't just an employee anymore. She's gone out on her own. Let's talk about lean placements.
This is her pivot to entrepreneurship. She is the CEO and founder. And if you look at the Lean Placements website, you see a very specific philosophy. She isn't just selling consulting. She is selling data storytelling.
The site says we engineer, model, and analyze your data and provide actionable insights. But what really caught my eye is the recruitment angle. They offer graduates on-job training to get them ready for real data projects.
This addresses a massive structural problem in the market, especially in South Africa and the broader continent. You have universities producing graduates who are technically brilliant. They know the theory of Python. They know the math behind the algorithm.
But
But they have never cleaned a messy data set from a 20-year-old banking system. They have never had to explain a P&L impact to an angry CEO. There is a reality gap.
so lean placements is essentially a finishing school.
It's a bridge. She is taking these raw gems, polishing them with the practical skills she learned at Access and MultiChoice, the governance,
Hmm.
the storytelling, the politics of data, and then placing them in industry. She is building the talent pipeline she probably wished she had when she was hiring.
And she's doing this on a community level, too. I saw she is heavily involved with the Global Ubuntu Data Network, GUDN.
Ubuntu is such a powerful concept here.
Yeah.
I am, because we are. Applying that to data science is really interesting. It suggests that the data ecosystem only works if everyone is lifted up. She was a panelist at their launch, speaking on data and AI for Africa,
She also hosts something called the Data Spark event.
which again targets that gap between tertiary education and the workplace. She isn't just hoarding her secrets. She's trying to standardize the quality of the next generation of analysts. It's mentorship at scale.
I want to pivot now to the how. We've talked about the strategy, but I want to geek out on the toolbox for a minute, because sometimes when people get to this head of strategy level, they haven't touched a keyboard in 10 years. They just make PowerPoints.
That is definitely not the case here. Her technical stack is heavy duty.
I'm looking at the list right now. Azure Synapse, IBM Netezza, SQL Server. These are enterprise-grade warehousing tools.
Netezza is serious hardware. That's for big data processing. You don't use Netezza for a spreadsheet.
She also lists Python and Power BI with advanced DAX. Now, I know a little bit about DAX. That's the formula language for Power BI. And advanced DAX usually implies some serious mental gymnastics.
It does. Basic DAX is simple math. Advanced DAX involves manipulating filter context, which is basically changing how the data is sliced and diced on the fly based on user interaction. To be proficient in advanced DAX means you are a coder. You aren't just dragging and dropping.
And then under advanced analytics, she lists churn and propensity modeling and value-based analytics.
Those are the statistical methods we discussed. Propensity modeling is, what is the probability of this customer doing X? It requires a deep understanding of regression analysis and statistics.
But there is one phrase in her core expertise section that I think is the most forward-looking part of this entire profile. It actually stopped me in my tracks.
I think I know the one. Operationalization of AI/agentic systems.
Agentic systems, we hear about AI all the time. Everyone is using ChatGPT. But agentic is different. What does that actually mean?
This is the bleeding edge. Most AI we use today is passive. You ask a question, it gives an answer, it waits for you. An agentic system has agency. It can take action on its own to achieve a goal.
Okay, so going back to the multi-choice example, a passive AI would tell a human agent, hey, this customer is at risk of churning.
Correct. And an agentic AI would see the risk, calculate the optimal discount to offer, draft the email, send the email to the customer, update the CRM, and log the result, all without a human clicking a single button.
That is a massive leap. That is the system effectively running parts of the business.
It is. And when she lists operationalization of these systems, she is talking about moving these things out of the R&D lab and putting them into the actual workflow of a bank or a healthcare provider.
But that sounds incredibly risky. I mean, if the AI starts sending out 90% discounts to everyone because it hallucinated, you're bankrupt.
And that brings us perfectly to the other pillar of her expertise that we haven't touched on enough: governance. She authored the Data Governance Framework at Access Bank.
Data governance usually sounds like the boring compliance stuff, the eat your vegetables of data.
It is, until you deploy agentic AI. Then governance becomes the emergency brake in the traffic laws.
Yes.
You cannot have autonomous systems without incredibly strict boundaries.
So she is building the race car, which is the agentic AI, but she is also writing the traffic laws, which is the governance to make sure it doesn't crash into the wall.
Exactly. And that combination is super rare. Usually you have the move fast and break things engineers on one side and the risk and compliance officers on the other, and they completely hate each other.
Yeah, they're always fighting.
But Celiwe embodies both. She knows how to build the model, but she also knows how to build the safety rails so that it passes a bank audit.
That duality seems to be her superpower. Technical versus strategic. Innovation versus governance.
And Ubuntu versus automation.
That's a great point. We have this tension in her profile. On one hand, she is pushing for agentic systems that automate decisions. On the other hand, she is deeply invested in human mentorship and the GUDN.
It raises a really provocative question about the future of this profession.
Which is,
As the agentic AI gets better, As the tools like Azure and Python start to write their own code, which is already happening right now, what is left for the human data scientist?
If the AI can write the SQL query to find the fuel savings and the AI can implement the fix.
Then the human value shifts. It shifts away from syntactic skills, knowing how to write code, towards semantic and ethical skills. The human needs to decide, should we optimize for this? Is this model fair? How do we explain this to the customer?
So the data storytelling that Celiwe preaches becomes even more important. The machine generates the data, but the human tells the story of what it means and why it matters.
Exactly. Celiwe is effectively training the next generation, not just to be coders, but to be the ethical guardians and the strategic storytellers of these agentic systems.
It's a shift from data miner to data architect.
Or data shepherd.
I really like that. So for you listening, sitting there with your massive spreadsheet, wondering where to start, what is the takeaway from Celiwe's career?
Don't just report the numbers. Don't just say fuel costs are up. Ask why and what do we do? Move from description to prescription.
And don't ignore the boring stuff. The governance, the integration, the cleaning of the data, that is the foundation that lets you do the cool agentic stuff later.
And finally, build the ladder. If you have the skills to try it, mentor someone else, the Ubuntu approach creates a stronger network for everyone.
Celiwe Makamate. From saving fuel and logistics to saving lives in healthcare and now building the future of African data talent. It's a powerful story of what happens when you treat data as an asset, not just a byproduct.
A true deep dive.
Thanks for listening. Go look at your own data. Are you just collecting numbers or are you telling a story? We'll catch you on the next one.